Hello, hello. Today we're going to be talking about the prophet Nahum. We're going to be going over chapter 1, and it's absolutely amazing that someone who lived in 600 BC, 500 BC, we are able to hear his message that's relevant for the day that we're living in. So I hope you'll enjoy it.
Day and night and day, the living creatures give their praise to him who lives eternally. They never cease from saying, Holy, holy is Yahweh Almighty, worthy, worthy to receive all glory.
Well, hello, hello. Welcome to Heart of the Tribe. My name is Chelle Wagner. So glad you're able to come and join me today, whether you're able to come in live or whether you come and join me a bit later. I'm just glad that you're here and able to participate. I love seeing all the comments that you guys leave, and I really appreciate that. I had to reschedule. I had this scheduled for like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I rescheduled very late in the middle of the night last night because I was up. I was inspired working on my next book, Tribal Synergy. And I'm really going far into how the body works, And so I was working on the aspect of the brain last night, and I was writing and writing, and I was able to formulate an oil. It's really getting interesting. I can't wait to start sharing more with you guys about that. For each and every tribe, there's a body system, and the head of the body is Yahusha. And it's so interesting in my research where I've been able to find like the brain actually has three very distinct functions in how it works. And so I've been writing about it and looking at it. And the oil that I formulated last night really runs along with the ministry of Yeshua as the head of the body, as our shepherd, as our head shepherd. So that's what I worked on. It's really about calming the brain down so that the brain will be able to make better decisions. So every oil in it is designed to bring the brain back into a state of quietness and confidence and being able to make really good, reasonable decisions, like when things are tough, when we need the advice of a good shepherd. Okay, so I'm going to get on. That was just kind of telling you what I was doing last night in the middle of the night. But for now, I'm going to get on with this presentation of Nahum. Let me go ahead and add Nahum to the screen. So Nahum was an ancient prophet with a message for our time. So it was written approximately 603 to 514 BC. You can see there, I've got Nahum written out in the Hebrew. It's a nun, a het, a vav, and a mem. Now the primitive root word, good morning, Judy. Good to have you here this morning. The primitive root word Nahum means to sigh or to be sorry, to have pity. Nahum was a recipient of visions, dreams, and revelations or oracles from Yahweh. It describes him in the beginning of the book as a son of Elkoshite. So that would really break down into two separate words. And so we've got El and then she, El She, right? El Kashi. So two possible primitive words for the Koshi would have been the Kufshin Yod or Kufshin Aleph or Kufshin Hey. They all of these words mean like to harden, right? Or being hard. Something where difficulties have been created, a stubbornness. Even a cucumber being a hard covered vegetable, that's where the etymology for cucumber comes from, right? It's so interesting. The Hebrew often just has so many different nuances that we can look at. And it's such an agricultural based language that so much of it is about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees. And when we dig in to see their function and a further meaning, it's fascinating. It opens everything up. It's probably why I love even like the essential oils. It's bringing a different aspect. And I have got that essential oil of the shepherd blend that I just did, just wafting through my office, and I'm really enjoying it. I'll get it listed on my Buy Me a Cup of Coffee site soon. Hopefully next week I'll go ahead and get my website up and running, so you'll be able to find everything in one place, which will be so much easier. All right, so Nahum was a prophet to Nineveh. So we've got a Nun, a Yod, a Vav, and a He right there in the name of Nineveh. Nineveh was the capital of Assyria. Genesis 10, 6 through 11 really gives us that background of Nineveh. It was born out of the kingdom of Nimrod. He was the son of Cush, the son of Ham. So he was the grandson of Ham, right? The prophet Jonah was also sent to Nineveh. He despised the people there and the land so greatly that he ran. He ran away from the job that Yah had directed him to do, which was to warn them to repent, because certain destruction was going to come if they did not change their ways. You guys hear me now? It looked like my microphone had become muted and unplugged. So hopefully we're good again. So Yah had to send a whale to swallow up Jonah and vomit him onto the shore of Nineveh, because Jonah ran from his calling as a prophet to the city of Nineveh. His prophecy was actually fulfilled close to, thank you, Judy. Thank you for letting me know. So the prophecy of Jonah didn't come until fulfillment until 176 years after it was delivered. So, sometimes prophecy is difficult in that way. It can be spoken, but it comes to pass. And even when we look at all those prophecies of all the prophets, we see multiple unfoldings until it reaches its fullness of time, which I believe are going to be in the end days, which I believe are right now. Time will tell. Okay, so Nahum 1:1. This is the burden of Nineveh, the sefer of the vision of Nahum the Elkoshai. So it was a burden. When Yah puts a heavy word on your heart as a prophet, nobody's going to like what you have to say. It's like right now. I know I speak a lot about, the correlations of the fact that I don't think that America is in for a good ending at all. And I don't think that, even though so many things look good right now, I don't think that they're going to end up being good right now with what's being set up with our current administration. There are certain things that I'm like, oh, yay, I feel like cheering about, with some of the dismantling of these administrative agencies that have been in a power grab in our country for a long, long time, with basically no checks and balances. They had no accountability, doing whatever they wanted to do, spending money hand over foot on frivolous things. Yet, and who knows that the money was actually sent there? It may have, padded a lot of accounts. What do I know? I'm a housewife in Thurman, North Carolina, right? Okay, so, but from what I'm reading, this is what I can see is a lot of corruption has been going on, but I'm not like going to put all my eggs in the basket of what's being set up at this time. I think set up is the key word. Okay, on to, and so what I was trying to say about that is that can be a burdensome message, because most people that I am like physically active with in my life, not all, but most, are absolutely head over heels this is the answer. America really is going to be made great again. It's all going in the right direction now. And I feel like I am just, remaining silent at a lot of things, because that's what the prudent do when you're around a bunch of people that have no interest in hearing what y'all may be showing you. So I share it with you guys on YouTube, right? All right. So Nahum 1:2. El is jealous, and Yahweh revenges. Yahweh revenges and is furious. Yahweh will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserves wrath for his enemies. Right? Oh, shalom, shalom, speaking the truth. Yeah, it's a small book. So she said, shalom, shalom, many blessings. It took me a few minutes to find the book of Nahum in my Sefer. Yeah, it's a small little book, but there's so much to it, right? Okay, so we're looking at this word adversary. So what is this word adversaries that we see in Nahum 1:2? It says Yahuwah will take vengeance on his adversaries. Adversaries is czar. I found that interesting when we think about like the history of the czars, right? And so it really even has that principality, that prince that's in power. I feel like every time we see this resh in the let me see if I can kind of show it with my mouse. I'm talking about this in the pictograph, right? So we've got this Zodi, right? That is like something that's hidden. And then you've got this picture that looks like the head of a man, right? And that's what it is. Resh means head, okay? So it can be what's going on in the mind. It can be someone who's set up in a position of power, like a prince, the chief head, like over an area, a kingship, a prince, a czar, right? A narrow, and so what this means in like the etymology and the Brown Driver Briggs, when I take it all my research and put it together, we've got a narrow or tight place, something that's in distress or in the straits, right? It's in that narrow place. It's a foe, it's an enemy, it's an oppressor, it's a hard pebble, like you got a pebble in your shoe and it's making it very difficult to walk. You're limping along, a flint, something that's hard, something that you would cut something else with. Okay, so then we go to the primitive root. And so we're looking at a 2-letter word on a 2-letter like root stem of the word. And then we go into the 3-letter primitive root, which would be zarar. Okay, so here we see it, you've got a double head at the end, a double resh. And it means to cause distress, to bind or shut up, to be bound or tied up, to press hard upon, to suffer distress, to show hostility towards, to vex and harass, right? So this is all those adversaries. This is what they have been doing to Yah's people, right? This is what the adversary does. And our promise in Nahum 1:2 is that Yahuwah sees it and he's going to take vengeance on those who have been acting in that manner towards his people. Let's see if I can get it. Here we go. Nahum 1:3. Yahuwah is slow to anger and great in power, and he will not at all acquit the wicked, because that's the adversary. It's wickedness. Yahuwah has his way in the whirlwind and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. I love getting this different picture of Yahweh because, in the church system, which I've been out of for a long time, but most of the time when we dealt with, the picture of Yah, of who God was, it was either presented as this little innocent lamb or, this God of vengeance that, was kind of unreasonable, that was now done away with. And none of that is an accurate picture. Yahweh, when you look at all the descriptions of his names and the names of Yahusha and the Christophanies, where Yeshua shows up, in the Old Testament, right? And it's Yeshua that we're dealing with. We are looking at so many different aspects. Yes, we're looking at a wonderful shepherd, but we're looking at an Elohim of vengeance also, who has had enough of wickedness. And he is righteous in all his judgments and in all his ways. This word whirlwind actually also, when you look at it in the Hebrew, it's Sair. It's the same as a goat, right? So he uses everything for his purposes. Nahum 1, 4, and 5, he rebukes the sea and makes it dry. He dries up all the rivers. Bashan, now Bashan was what? An ancient place, Og of Bashan. So this was a land of the giants, okay? Bashan languishes, and Carmel. Carmel was another high place. This is where Elijah went up on the top of Mount Carmel and confronted the 400 prophets of Isabel, right? And so that's that place. So that was a high place because they had set it up as their high place of worship. Carmel actually means garden of Yah. I love that. All right. So he says he rebukes the sea and makes it dry and dries up all the rivers. Bashan languishes and Carmel, and the flower of Lebanon languishes. The mountains quake at him and the hills melt, and the earth is burned at his presence. Yea, the world and all that dwell therein. Nahum 1:6, who can stand before his indignation, and who can abide in the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. You know, we're seeing so many natural disasters going on in the world. They have increased in intensity and frequency the closer that we get to his coming. Nahum 1:7. I love this. I can't remember the name of this. I know they call it the eye of God. It's a star formation up in the heavenlies, right? The Mazarot, I believe is what that's called. So anyway, I just took 2 pictures of it because it reminded me of this verse. Nahum 1:7. Yahweh is good. He is tov. That word good is tov. It means he is absolute perfection in everything he does. I can see my internet's going out. I'm going to wait and I'm going to repeat it because I'm talking about the wonderful attributes of Yahweh. He's tov. He's good. He is absolutely perfect. Yahweh is good. Tov is absolutely perfect in all his ways, right? It is absolute perfection, perfect in justice, perfect in power, perfect in love, perfect in decisions, right? It's his righteousness. He absolutely good in being tov is functions exactly as intended. And that's what Yahweh does. He functions as the self-existent one, right? Absolute perfection. He is a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knows them that trust in him. This is absolutely one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Yahweh is good. He is a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knows. It's yada. It's an intimate knowledge. Those that trust in him. He knows when we trust him, and he sees it, and he cares about it, and it's important. And I always want to be counted in that number, right? Nahum 1:8. But with an overrunning flood, he will make an utter end of the place thereof, and darkness shall pursue his enemies. What is this darkness? It's the Hosek, right? Pursue, Radaf. So we've got the Resh, the Dalit, and the Pei, right? And the Radaf. So, you know, we've got the head of the doorway that speaks forth, right? It's pursuing, right? So, and this darkness, we're going to look at darkness again. You can see the darkness was the same darkness, the Hoset, that was in, okay, let's just read it. In the beginning, Elohim created Et, Aleph Tav, the heavens and ate the earth, right? And the earth was without form, right? So it wasn't cohesive. And it was void, meaning it wasn't occupying the space that it should. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. Hosek was there. See, I love this when we read the Genesis account, because light, the first light was not the sun and the moon. A light was called forth, right, to dissipate darkness and to deal with darkness. Light, come forth. And I believe that that was the light of Yahusha. And it was dealing with a war that was going on before humanity was ever on the scene. Okay, so this word pursue, radaf, is chases, puts to flight, follows after, hunts, persecutes, pursues, right? So let's just reread Nahum 1:8. But with an overrunning flood, he will make an utter end of the place thereof, and darkness shall pursue his enemies. He takes darkness and sets it after his enemies. Absolutely amazing. Nahum 1:9. What do you imagine against El Yahweh? He will make an utter end. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. Wow. He is saying when he decides that he's putting an end to our adversary and the affliction that has been put upon his people, it's not going to be able to rise a second time. This is Yahweh Zavaot, Yahusha, the captain of the host of all the angel armies, coming to deal at the very end of things before he ushers in the new Jerusalem, right, that is coming down. And before he, the earth has passed away, and there's the new earth and the new heavens and the millennial reign. Before all that, he comes to deal with the adversary, right? So dealing with the adversary comes from the same primitive root word. It's affliction. It's zara, okay? So you see again, we've got the zadi, the resh, and the hey, behold, right? Behold, look what's happening here. I can see it through a window. Like I'm looking at it, and I'm able to see clearly that, this affliction, this zara, it's distress, trouble, a vexer, a rival wife. Isn't that interesting that there could be a rival wife? I mean, it's the story, wasn't that Hannah's story, the mother of, wasn't she the mother of Samson? Am I right in that one? I'm like trying to bring it up I'm ruffling through the files. We'll see. All right, let me go on here. Okay, Nahum 1:10. For while they be folden together as thorns, and while they are drunken as drunkards, they shall be devoured as stubble fully dry. Okay, folden, sabak. Okay, something that's folded together. It's put together. Okay, it's like a tangle weed, right? When I think about that. So where else do we see something that was folded together? Well, we see this in Mark chapter 15, verse 16, 17, and 18. It says, and the soldiers led him away into the hall called Praetorium, and they called together the whole band, and they clothed him with purple and platted a crown of thorns and put it about his head, and began to salute him, Hail, King of the Yahudim. And then we can see in Matthew 13:7, other seeds fell among thorns that grew up and choked out the tender plants. This is the purpose of thorns, right? It's the tares. Matthew 13:22, the seed that fell among the thorns, among the tares, represents those who hear Elohim's word, but all too quickly, just like this, right? The message is crowded out by the worries of this life. It's being so plugged into the world, which is where the tares are. And the lure of wealth. Oh, I've got to make $1. I've got to make a dime. I've got to, boost up my retirement plan and my 401k and, my stock portfolio and whatever it is, right? It's being caught up in that, right? So all too quickly, the message is crowded out by the worries of this life and the lure of wealth. So no fruit is able to come from the good seed that was planted. Isaiah 28 is written to the drunkards of Ephraim, drunk on power, drunk on wealth, drunk on actual alcohol, drunk on entertainment, drunk on the sports, drunk on the politics. It's just so plugged into the world system and what's going on in it. And Isaiah 28:1 says, what sorrow awaits the proud city of Samaria. Again, we're dealing with a capital city that is located in Ashur, Samaria. This is what the 10 tribes ended up migrating to and integrated into, and it became part of their identity, so much so that they lost the knowledge of who they were. They were so scattered into the nations, right? The proud city of Samaria, the glorious crown of the drunks of Israel. That's what it's talking about, those 10 northern tribes. It sits at the head of a fertile valley, but its glorious beauty will fade like a flower. It is the pride of a people brought down by wine. Okay? Isaiah 28:2-6. I want to read just a little bit more about this, about the drunkards of Ephraim. Now, this is out of the New Living Translation, but you guys know, if you've listened to me, I like to insert my preferred pronouns. For Yahweh will send, and actually this one would be Adonai, because see here, when it's translated all capital Lord, you can pretty much know that it's referring to Yahweh. When it's capital Lord, it's usually Adonai, right? For Adonai in the Hebrew. For Adonai sends a mighty army against it, like a mighty hailstorm and a torrential rain. They will burst upon it like a surging flood and smash it to the ground. The proud city of Samaria, the glorious crown of the drunks of Israel, will be trampled beneath its enemies' feet. It sits at the head of a fertile valley, but its glorious beauty will fade like a flower. Whoever sees it will snatch it up as an early fig. Figs can sometimes blossom into fruit 2 times during the year, right? So as an early fig, it is quickly picked and eaten. Then at last, Yahweh Zavaot, right? The Lord of heaven's angel armies is really what that is, okay? Will himself, and this is a picture of Yahusha that we're seeing in Isaiah. This is what they call a Christophany. So at last, Yahweh Zavaot will himself be Yasharel's glorious crown. He will be the pride and joy of the remnant of his people. He will give a longing for justice to their judges, right? Restoring righteousness within the judicial system. Wow, won't that be something? He will give great courage. Hazak, right? Hazak Hamat. I think it is courage Hamat. I remember from Joshua, it was Hazaka Mach, be strong and courageous. So it's Amatz, right? He will give great courage to their warriors who stand at the gates. All right. Now, however, still in Isaiah 28:7-10, now, however, Israel is led by drunks who reel with wine and stagger with alcohol. The priest and the prophet stagger with alcohol and lose themselves in wine. They reel when they see visions and stagger as they render decisions. You can see I've got Paul White in here, right? If anybody's like a drunkard reeling to me, it's that woman. Okay, that boy, I think is that one a setup. I mean, I'll probably continue to talk about that one, right? The people are bored. They're, drinking the wine. They want entertainment. Right. And here she is with her and her apostate husband. I posted on my Telegram not long ago when those two got married, her and her current husband, Jonathan Cain, a musician, a rock musician of some sort. she invited him to her pulpit so that they could teach their church that a marriage counseling, that porn is good for a marriage. You want to talk about apostate? I posted it on my Telegram. I just couldn't believe what I heard that they said. This was shortly after their marriage, that I think was in 2015, I believe. It just absolutely disgusting, right? All right, I'm going to try to read this in context. I got distracted by the pictures that I saw on my own slide. It's okay, 7 through 10. Now, however, Israel is led by drunks who reel with wine and stagger with alcohol. The priests and the prophets stagger with alcohol and lose themselves in wine. They reel when they see visions and stagger as they render decisions. Their tables are covered with vomit. Filth is everywhere. Who does Yahweh think we are? They ask. Why does he speak to us like this? Are we little children just recently weaned? He tells us everything over and over, one line at a time, a little here and a little there. See the attitude against the Most High right there from those who are supposed to be the leaders. Isaiah 28:11-13. So now Elohim will have to speak to his people through foreign oppressors who speak a strange language, right? It's a Zur language, right? Elohim has told his people, this is the language when Moshe said, I can't speak for you to your people because I was trained with a strange language on my tongue. He was talking about the Egyptian language and what he had been trained in, right? So Elohim has told his people, here is a place of rest. Let the weary rest here. This is a place of quiet rest. But they wouldn't listen to it. As people, rarely do we want to do things Yah's way. So Yahweh will spell out his message for them again, one line at a time, a little here and a little there, so that they will stumble and fall. They will be injured, trapped, and captured, those who refuse to obey. You know, I was reading a very, very interesting story for a moment. Let me tell you about this. Francine Rivers, one of my favorite authors, has written a book, and it's about the prophet Amos. And in the story, so spoiler alert if you haven't read it, I'm going to tell you part of the story. In the story, he is a shepherd in Tekoa, and he has a sheep that has 2 baby lambs, and the sheep tends to be very stubborn, constantly wandering away, getting herself in all kinds of predicaments, and her little lambs following her. And because she was so adventurous, other sheep tend to follow sheep. You know, the more mild will follow the ones who seem to be more bold. That's why a bossy sheep can cause huge problems. You know, you get bully sheep. Sheep are so much like people. You get bully sheep who will decide, I want this particular piece of ground. And they will headbutt all the other sheep out of that and cause dissension in the ranks of the sheep and not make for a pleasant sheepfold that is willing to lie down by the still waters and do what's good for them as sheep, which is be able to rest and trust the shepherd. Right? You get a bossy sheep and it'll cause a lot of problems. So there's so many examples that we see go on in the body, right? So anyway, in this book, and as you know, and she's writing historical fiction based on scripture, but Amos is dealing with this particular sheep, and he's like, what am I going to do? So he keeps trying to rescue it and bring it back, rescue it, bring it back. He knows this particular sheep is causing trouble. And so finally, this particular sheep, it gets itself in so much trouble that it does get attacked by a predator while it's wandering away. And the 2 little lambs, her 2 little babies that are with her, one of them is so frightened that it dies of shock right on the spot. The other one he's able to rescue and bring back to the fold. But what happens is the one that was rescued and brought back to the fold still has and followed after for a long period of time, doing the wrong thing, the dangerous thing. And so finally, he makes the decision as the shepherd to go ahead and use his slingshot and break that little lamb's leg.
right? And it's like, whoa. Right? So, this little lamb's crying out. It's got this broken leg now that needs to heal. So he goes, he tends to the little lamb's wound, and he begins to carry that little lamb on his shoulders everywhere he goes. But what happens, it gives the time for that sheep to bond with the shepherd and for its leg to heal. And then the leg heals, and that sheep he's able to put down. But now this little sheep has become very attached to the shepherd because it had to learn to depend in totality on the shepherd. That story really touched my heart because I've been through some tough things, and I know that one of the things when, just personal story, when Robert and I got married not long after we started, Robert is an auctioneer and we owned an auction house in our town. The thing is, starting a new business, it took up like every spare second of our time. Every bit of our focus and time and energy was on running this business. And we were out of balance with it. And Yah was more of an afterthought. And we tried to honor Shabbat, but too many times we would say, well, we're just trying to start a new business. Maybe our ox is in the ditch. And we would make the wrong decision. And we didn't honor Yah the way that we needed to be. And then what happened is I got deathly ill. I got bit by a weaponized bug and got Lyme disease and got exposed to mold. And I came down with sears until I was literally on my butt. I could not. I'm talking years. I'm still dealing with it. I'm still coming out of it, which is how Heart of the Tribe ended up being born, because I had to find something to occupy my time because my immune system was wiped out and I couldn't go be around people. And this was all way before the CV hit the world, So I had been used to spending a lot of time alone. And I had found Dr. Pigeon's ministry while I was there and really enjoyed, starting to fellowship with him and the Shabbat group and different things. And so I love that story. Sometimes Yah has to allow these very difficult places, when I was thinking about that, after I read, I was really pondering that whole thing, because it's so intimate and so personal. And I'll do a video about this. But when I looked at it, I thought, if I had to study something to really understand this concept, Job chapter 23. Job chapter 23 explains that concept in such a degree. I'm going through it line by line, little by little, and breaking down the words. And I will do a video about that. But and I'll share some out of that book. In fact, I'll probably try to do that next week. I love that. Thank you. Sing a new song. She's just saying that I have a beautiful testimony. Yah's been very good to me. He's been very good to me over and over again. That's not the only time. He has so rescued me from so many things where I was stubborn, rebellious, infiltrated with darkness. He literally has so translated me out of the kingdom of darkness and into his glorious light. And I could never be grateful enough. So anyway, let me get back to this. Anyway, I'll try to do that. I'm going to add back in my slide. It says in Isaiah 28:11, so now Elohim will have to speak to his people. So we read this one, okay? They will be injured, trapped, and captured. And that's what he has to do sometimes in order to get our attention. I've learned to pray a little differently when I see people that I love that are being rebellious. And my prayer is always, Father, give them every opportunity that your mercy can provide so that they can make a different decision, and help me to trust you no matter what I see you bring about in their lives in order to get their attention. But please give them every opportunity for mercy and grace to repent before you and make things right before they draw their last breath. And whatever that looks like, help me to trust you and not take my eyes off of you. And that's how I've been learning to pray for those in my family and loved ones that I see that are on the wrong path, that it breaks my heart. But I know that I've said all that I can say. And at this point, prayer is just my hope, my only hope for where they're at, because they're not willing to listen. All right. Isaiah 28:14-15. Therefore, listen to this message from Yahweh, you scoffing rulers in Jerusalem. You boast, we have struck a bargain to cheat death and have made a tool to dodge the grave. The coming destruction can never touch us, for we have built a strong refuge made of lies and deception. Okay, so what are we looking at? I have this on the screen. We are definitely looking at AGI. All right. Artificial General Intelligence, the Internet of Things. This is what is coming. The enemy is building a body. Yahusha has a body, and that's what my book, Tribal Synergy, that I'm writing now is all about, is, how we can find it in the physical body system. But Yahusha is building his body. He is the head. But the enemy is building a body too, and he's building it through exactly what we see here, this AGI, the Internet of Things. Okay. And what's interesting about that, where we see, says we've made a bargain to cheat death and have made a deal to dodge the grave. See, this is the thought process behind what we're seeing in the technology and in the beast system. They believe that they can cheat death, right? Because what did Yahusha come to do? He came for our redemption. He came to pay a debt that we could never pay. He paid it with his blood. And then he descended 3 days, 3 nights, 3 days and 3 nights, not Friday to Sunday, but 3 days, 3 nights, right? In the bowels of the earth, where it says he dealt with the principalities and powers, ripping the keys of the kingdom and their authority back away from them, right? Defeating them. So what are they afraid of? What are those that are doing evil most afraid of? Meeting their maker, right? And all the principalities that will have their final punishment come. What are they afraid of but having to deal with the king, right? So they're trying to come up with ways that they think they can cheat death. Well, I'll just take my soul. I'll never die. I'll upload it to the cloud, and there'll be a clone made of me, and then I'll still exist. I've done some reports from under the desk about this. If this is a new concept for you, go look at the playlist there. I've talked about this quite a bit in some of those reports from under the desk shows that I've done. Okay. Nahum 1:11, there is one come out of you that imagines, right? It's ruminating, thinking about, I'll, turn it this way and that. He imagines that he's going to perpetrate an evil against Yahweh. This is a wicked counselor. I love how Nahum puts that there. But then here's our answer. Nahum 1:12-13. Thus says Yahweh, though they be quiet and likewise many, yet thus shall they be cut down when he shall pass through. Though I have afflicted you, right? Just what we were talking about in that story of Amos. Though I have afflicted you, I will afflict you no more, right? There comes an end to the pain. Nahum 1:13, for now will I break his yoke. Whose yoke? The adversaries, from off you, and will burst your bonds in sunder. We hear a lot of erroneous teaching. And in fact, when we look at things that like the NAR, the New Apostolic Reformation, and the things that go on, prosperity now, kingdom now, it's funny because when I used to be involved in that long time ago, because I got to understanding Torah and the feast back in 2002 is when Yah called me out of being a church in that system, right? I saw it, and I ended up leaving all of that. But what I would notice is any struggles that I had or other people had, it was almost looked upon, it was like friendly fire. right? They were looked upon that you didn't have the faith that it took to get well or to be rich or to be prosperous. And maybe you just weren't giving enough in that anointed offering. I mean, what an apostate system, right? So God's going to burst any of that apostate system out of the water too, right? Okay, put my slide back on. Okay, Nahum 1:14. And Yahweh has given a commandment concerning you, that no more of your name be sown. Out of the house of your Elohim will I cut off graven image and the molten image. I will make your grave, for you are vile. You are cursed. That's what he's saying. You know, there is no redemption for you. For those, for the fallen, and for the ones that this is what they have plugged into and changed their very genetic makeup, right? Oh, willingly. People, it's going to be amazing how many people stand in line for the brain chip and the hand chip and the whole beast system. We saw it. We've already seen it happen, right? So here's Yah's promises to us, Nahum 1:15. Behold, upon the mountains, the feet of him that brings good news. What is that? Besorah, right? In Sarah, what was in Sarah but the seed of redemption, the seed of Yahusha, the seed of our Redeemer coming down, right? Behold upon the mountains of the feet of him that brings good news. The good news, the gospel, the Besorah that publishes peace. O Yahudah, keep your solemn feast. Perform your vows, for the wicked shall no more pass through you. He is utterly cut off. You know, right now we live in a day and time where we sigh and cry for the lack of being able to keep the feast and the Shabbat as properly as it should be, right? It's impossible. I don't care what nation you're in or where you're at. There's always some bombardment coming in from the world. It's the system that we're in. And we are longing as a people for that kingdom that belongs to Yahusha, that things are done according to how he says they should be done. And so we cry and sigh, waiting for that fullness of redemption and being with him and being able to honor the king in his presence, right? It will happen. It will happen, right? Joy. We're talking about joy. What is joy? It's simcha. Okay, so it's a shin, a mem, a het, and a hey. Right. Samak is the primitive root word. So we're looking at the shin, the mem, and the het. Right. So what is this word picture? To rejoice. Right. Right here. To rejoice is to destroy. There's your shin. Chaos. There's the mem of division, right? Of being separated from him. Oh, somehow my scripture didn't get put on this slide. I do not know what happened to it. There it is. Psalm 27:6 says, and now shall my head be lifted up above my enemies round about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto Yahweh. You know, those times when he has had to afflict us for our own good, when he's had to allow affliction in our lives for our own good, right? So that we could draw closer and learn what he needed us to learn. When we are lifting up our praise to him in the middle of difficulties, it's so valuable to him. It is a sacrifice of joy. When we dance before him and we sweat and we exert energy, what is it? We're made of a big fat layer, right? We got a big fat layer. No matter how skinny you are, you may not have as big a fat layer as I have, but we've all got one, right? And so when we exert energy and we're sweating and we're worshiping him with everything we got and our tears come, all of that is a diminishing of the fat layer. It's like putting the fat on the altar, and the sweet smelling savor of that rises up to Yahweh, right? And he enjoys the flavor and the fragrance. It's a sweet smelling offering to him. He knows what we're going through. He knows what it feels like and what it costs when everything in your world is falling apart, when you don't feel like you don't have two nickels to rub together and you're wondering how you're going to buy eggs. Right? And wondering how you're going to make it, or, your loved one's in the hospital or dies, and your heart is broken, and now you find yourself a widow or a mother who has lost a child, and you don't know how you're going to go on, and you still lift up a love offering that tears are flowing and sweat is diminishing, and maybe even fasting, as you're praying for a miracle. All of that is a sweet smelling offering on the altar, and it's rising up before him, and he loves the fragrance, and it does not go unnoticed, right? Takes us back right to Nahum 1:7. For Yahweh is good, and he knows those that trust in him. He knows. All right. That was actually all that I had. I couldn't remember what my last slide was. I hope that those thoughts help bring you into a restful, peaceful, meaningful Shabbat. It's about 12:20 where I am in North Carolina right now on Friday, February the 21st of 2025. And I've got to go and do all what's necessary for me to prepare my home and for a peaceful Shabbat for Robert and I here. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to that rest, and I hope you are too. And so for now, I say shalom, blessings. Thank you for each and every person who came to join me today. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for participating, and may you be blessed and have a wonderful and peaceful Shabbat.
Day and night and day, the living creatures give their praise to him who lives eternally. They never cease from saying, holy, holy is Yahweh.